Okay, so if you're an emergency medicine practitioner, especially here in the UK, you definitely know the feeling. That relentless pressure point.
Yeah, the sheer volume of medical information, it's just huge, isn't it?
And it changes constantly.
Hmm.
Trying to keep up often leads to what our sources are calling resource fatigue.
Right. You end up spending more time actually finding the information than, using it. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the core challenge we want to get into today.
Yeah, the goal of continuous professional development, CPD, in EM, it isn't just about ticking boxes or absorbing facts. It's really about effective knowledge management.
Okay.
So our mission here is to pull together some proven strategies, ones that work together based on this research, to make your CPD feel more structured, sustainable, and frankly, less overwhelming.
Sounds good. We've basically distilled it down into two main strategies that really need to work in tandem.
Hmm.
First up, building that solid structured foundation. We're calling it the big book, little book approach, or BBLB for short.
And second, once you have that base, you need a way to make the learning stick, right? For the long haul. That's where rapid cycle deliberate practice, or RCDP, comes in.
RCDP, got it. So keeping that high-yield knowledge fresh in what's, let's face it, a really demanding job.
Exactly.
Okay, let's dive into this big book, little book method then. It sounds like more than just, having two textbooks on your shelf.
Oh, definitely. It's a physical framework, really, a structured way to tackle the whole massive EM curriculum. And the endpoint is this highly personalized resource you create.
Okay, so how does it actually work? What are the steps?
Well, it's basically a synthesis technique. It forces you into active knowledge encoding, which is key.
Right.
Step one, pick a little book.
Right.
This needs to be concise, really focused on revision, something that covers the necessary breadth of the curriculum.
Okay, breadth first, then step two.
Step two is choosing your big book. This is where you get the detailed, in-depth explanations for the really complex concepts, the nitty-gritty.
Okay, little book for overview, big book for depth. Seems standard so far, but you mentioned a game changer, the synthesis step.
Yes, this is the critical bit. Step three. You read the little book chapter first, get the lay of the land. Then you dive into the big book for that deeper understanding. And then this is the key part. You consolidate and personalize. You actually transcribe the key details, the clinical pearls, the crucial explanatory notes from that big book directly into the margins of your little book.
Ah, I see. So you end up with one single custom-built reference text. But hang on. Transcribing notes from a massive textbook like Rosen's, isn't that exactly the kind of time-consuming task we're trying to avoid?
That's a really fair point, and it's easy to think that.
Feels like it could lead straight back to that fatigue. How do you stop yourself just copying everything?
Well, the sources emphasize it's not really about capturing everything. The power is in the act of recall that the physical act of transcribing demands. You're forced to think, okay, what's really essential here? What's need to know versus just nice to know? That filtering, that process of deciding and then writing it down in your own way, that's what forces your brain to encode it properly. It creates memory anchors. Much better than just highlighting a sentence.
Right, okay, that clicks. It's an encoding technique, not just note-taking. That makes a huge difference. So if someone's starting this now, what books are recommended?
Okay, so based on the sources, for the primary little book, Tintinelli's Emergency Medicine Manual often gets the nod. It balances depth and brevity quite well and covers both adult and peds.
Good to know. Any alternatives?
Yeah, if you prefer that sort of classic revision layout, combining adult emergency medicine at a glance with pediatrics at a glance could work well too. Familiar format for many.
And the big book, the one you might borrow rather than buy.
Yeah, for that you're looking at the definitive texts, aren't you? Rosen's Emergency Medicine or the full main Tintinelli's Emergency Medicine.
Right. And we should probably mention Crackcast.
Oh yes, good point. The sources mention the HearAcast podcast as a great supplement if you are systematically working through Rosen's, as it reviews it chapter by chapter.
Useful. Now, critically for UK listeners, cost is always a factor with these big books.
Absolutely. And there's a really crucial cost management tip here. The advice is generally, yes, buy your little book, that's your core working text, but try to borrow the big book because they are seriously expensive.
Okay.
But more importantly, for UK practitioners, maximize your institutional benefits. Always, always check if your NHS Athens account gives you free online access.
Ah, good shout. To core textbooks.
Yes, often to core textbooks, but also to things like clinical decision support tools, maybe even up-to-date, and journals. Check Athens first before you spend anything. It can save you a fortune.
Okay, so you've painstakingly built this amazing personalized BBLB text. Job done.
If only the enemy then becomes erosion, right? Knowledge fade. You can't just cram it all in and expect it to stick forever, especially not in EM.
True. Which brings us to the second big strategy. Rapid cycle deliberate practice, RCDP.
Exactly. RCDP is all about a little and often. It's designed specifically to counter that natural skill decay you get in high-demand fields.
We've all been there.
Oh, yeah. You know, that moment when maybe you haven't had to properly interpret a tricky ECG in a high-stakes situation for a week or two and you feel just that little bit rusty?
Definitely.
RCDP fights that slow fade. Frequent, low-stakes exposure keeps things sharp.
What I found really interesting in the sources was the link they make between RCDP and psychological well-being. It's not just about remembering facts.
No, absolutely not. It's key for lifelong learning, obviously. But the research explicitly cites it as a technique for building professional resilience and even potentially avoiding moral injury in the high-stress ED environment.
Wow, okay. How does that work?
Well, think about it. When you feel competent, when you feel like you have a handle on your knowledge base because you're actively maintaining it with structured practice, that combats that feeling of helplessness or being overwhelmed that can really contribute to burnout and moral injury.
Right, it gives you a sense of control.
Exactly. It's framed almost as an act of professional self-preservation.
That really shifts the perspective.
Yeah.
It makes RCDP sound like a wellness strategy, just as much as a learning one. So where does it have the biggest impact in day-to-day practice?
It's particularly effective for those interpretive skills, things you do all the time but maybe don't think of as formal studying.
Like what?
Like frequently analyzing ECGs, even quick interpretations, or blood gases, or just reviewing radiology images, even normal ones. It's about that frequent, low-stakes practice.
So integrating it into the workflow almost.
Yeah, these are skills that really thrive on RCDP, and they're absolutely critical for catching things and avoiding cognitive errors when you're under pressure on the floor.
Okay, so RCDP needs a steady flow of good quality stuff to work with. A little and often implies you need frequent input.
Right.
But when you look online, especially the whole FOMed world, free open access medication, it's less of a stream and more of a fire hose, isn't it?
It really is. Blogs, podcasts, websites, the sheer number can instantly trigger that resource fatigue we talked about right at the start.
So you need a system. You need to manage that flow to actually feed the RCDP habit, not drown in it.
Absolutely. And this is where technology becomes pretty much non-negotiable for streamlining things. The sources strongly recommend using tools like RSS feed aggregators.
Like Feedly.
Exactly. Feedly is a common example. And also dedicated podcast managers like Overcast, perhaps.
How do they help?
Well, they automatically gather all the new content from the specific sources you've chosen your curated list into one single place.
Oh, okay.
So it turns that overwhelming flood into a controlled, manageable stream that you can dip into for your little and often RCDP sessions.
Makes sense. But just because something pops up in your feed, even from a site lots of people use, doesn't automatically mean it's, well, correct or clinically sound.
Crucial point. Popularity isn't the same as validity. We need a strong filter before integrating any resource into your regular RCDP.
So how do we evaluate this stuff critically?
Okay, the sources mention a couple of tools. One quick check is something called the Social Media Index, or SMI.
SMI, what's that?
It's basically a way to get a rough measure of a resource's online reputation or influence. It uses metrics like website traffic rankings, Alexa rank number of Twitter followers, Facebook likes, things like that.
It gives a score.
Yeah, a score from 0 to 10.
So, okay, the sources mention Life in the Fast Lane, LITFL, scores really high, like 9.65. What does that actually tell me as a busy clinician?
Think of it as a quick proxy for influence and maybe a degree of peer vetting. A high score suggests that, look, thousands of your peers find this site useful and probably trustworthy.
Right, it's a community endorsement almost.
Exactly. It helps you quickly identify resources that are likely worth investigating further and maybe adding to your curated feed, like LITFL or Alium is another high scorer I mentioned.
Okay, so SMI helps gauge influence and popularity, but that still doesn't guarantee scientific rigor, does it? If I read a blog post on LITFL summarizing a new trial,
You still need to appraise the underlying research itself.
absolutely.
You can't just rely on the summary.
So what tools do we use for that? For digging into the actual study?
That's where proper critical appraisal skills and tools come in. Frameworks like the GATE analysis are mentioned. This is often promoted by outfits like the Critical Appraisal Skills Program, CASP, which UK folks might know.
GATE.
What does that stand for?
It's a structured way to break down the study: population, intervention, outcome, and time frame.
Right.
It forces you to systematically pick apart the study's methods and results and ask, okay, is this actually valid? And is it truly applicable to my patients here in the UK? It moves you beyond just passively accepting the blog's conclusion.
Okay, let's try and pull this all together then. We got the foundational strategy, BBLB. We've got the sustainability strategy, RCDP, fueled by a managed digital feed.
Right.
Now let's focus on some specific essential resources that the sources highlight, particularly those really relevant for UK EM practice. Where should people start building that RCDP feed? Well, you absolutely have to anchor it with the key UK-specific resources first. Number one, non-negotiable really, is the Royal College of Emergency Medicine's own platform, RCEM Learning.
Why is that so crucial?
Because its content is specifically mapped to the UK curriculum. It's designed for UK EM trainees and practitioners. You should also definitely look at St. Emlyn's blog. It's got a strong UK focus, great summaries of relevant research, and general EM discussion from a UK perspective. Its SMI score is pretty decent too, 5.42.
Good. And we need to hammer home that institutional access point again, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. That NHS Athens account. It is your free key, potentially, to up-to-date.
Which is huge.
It's a phenomenal evidence-based clinical decision support tool. And bonus, it often tracks your CME activity too. Honestly, that should be one of the first things you check for point-of-care support. Massive value.
Okay, so core UK stuff covered.
Yeah.
What about keeping up with new research and journals?
For structured help with appraising new papers, the Bottom Line blog is great. It does really clear, structured summaries, particularly focused on critical care and EM trials.
And podcasts.
The SGM podcast, The Skeptic's Guide to Emergency Medicine, is mentioned for its very structured analysis of new literature. Good for honing your own appraisal skills, too.
Journals. Anything UK specific?
The Emergency Medicine Journal, EMJ, is cited as being pretty key for UK-specific developments and guidelines. And of course, Annals of Emergency Medicine is a major international one to keep an eye on.
Right. Finally, thinking about being on the shop floor in the ED, what about high-yield specialty resources or mobile apps for quick reference?
Okay, for pediatrics, don't forget the Bubbles is really highly respected, globally, good quality stuff. And there's also Pediatric Emergencies, which is UK-specific.
Toxicology. That's always tricky.
For toxicology in the UK, it's got to be TalkSpace, hasn't it? That's the definitive national resource. You need to be familiar with accessing and using that.
ECGs. Always need good ECG resources.
Yep. Beyond the big sites like LITFL's ECG library, Dr. Smith's ECG blog is mentioned as excellent for in-depth analysis.
And apps. Things to have on your phone for quick lookups.
Yeah, practical tools are essential. Wikiem is great as a quick clinical reference. MD Calc for all those clinical scores. The Pediatric Emergencies app is useful for resuscitation data like drug doses. And the iEmergency Manual app for quick ophthalmology guides.
So tools that really facilitate RCDP right there at the bedside.
Exactly, making it easy to do that little and often check or refresh. Hashtag outro. So, to sort of wrap this deep dive up, for the busy EM practitioner, especially in the UK, getting CPD right isn't just about reading more, it's about structure.
Yeah, it really comes down to integrating these pieces.
Right. Building that solid foundation with something like the big book, little book method, keeping the knowledge alive and sharp with rapid cycle deliberate practice, and really making the most of your institutional resources like NHS Athens alongside carefully chosen, critically appraised digital tools.
And we want to leave you with maybe one final thought, which comes directly from the sources and feels quite powerful. This idea that RCDP, that little and often practice, isn't just about remembering stuff. It's actually highlighted as key to building your professional resilience.
Yeah.
And actively helping you avoid that sense of moral injury that can come from feeling overwhelmed or de-skilled in such a high-pressure job.
It's empowering.
Exactly. So maybe just consider this. How could intentionally setting aside just maybe 10 minutes a day, or even a few times a week, for some deliberate practice, reviewing an ECG, checking a guideline on UpToDate, quickly running through a score on MD Calc, how might that fundamentally change your relationship with the demands of the emergency department?
Shifting it from just a source of fatigue
to maybe, just maybe, a source of continuous, sustainable, and genuinely empowering professional growth. Something to think about.